Most of the material that will be quoted in this woke news brief is not appropriate for young ears. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Woke News Brief, home of, it sounds quite a bit silly, but unfortunately, yep, this is true news. We're cutting through the noise to get you the news that for the most part is hidden and not broadcasted. I'm Daniel Moore, your host for this episode of the Woke News Brief. This is my second attempt at getting you some news that is not really broadcasted very much. And so I hope that you guys will stick with me. Hopefully you enjoyed the first episode that we had here several weeks ago. And if you did not get a chance to check that out, you can actually go back to my website, connectingthegap.net. There is a list of podcasts there that I've had on my podcasting channels, and you can backtrack and check out that episode of Woke News Brief. And of course, if you don't know why I do this, in the first episode that I did of the Woke News Brief, I explained why I am doing this. We are needing to take back the ground that Satan has stolen. These pedophiles and the transgenderism, all of this left-wing propaganda, they're out to take our kids. They're trying to steal our children from us. They're trying to take the control of our public school systems away from the parent and put it into the hands of school districts, school superintendents, and woke school boards. And all of this stuff needs to be exposed. Our children are going to be harmed by this in the long run. They're too young to be even, considered learning some of this type of stuff. It's disgusting and embarrassing for me sometimes when I see all this stuff that's going on. And I am 50 years old, so I know that our kids are, there's a lot of them are getting traumatized by all of this. So the purpose I'm doing this is in my first Woke News Brief. We're not going to go through that again. I just hope that you'll hang out with me this week as I bring you lots more news that has hit the airwaves here within the last couple of months. And we'll just try to keep you guys updated as the time goes along. Also, I like to mention this. There is a new service out there for those of you that are trying to keep up with the companies that are going woke. And the way that you can do that is you can sign up for the Woke Alert. You can enter your phone number, and conservative-minded shoppers will receive a text update on companies deemed to have strayed too far left in their marketing and other strategies. Many corporations are putting progressive activists and their dangerous agendas ahead of customers. They'll only succeed if we look the other way. You can go online and visit consumersresearch.org/woke alert. Again, that's consumersresearch.org/woke alert. And you can sign up there for those updates and for those text messages, and they'll keep you updated on the companies that are going woke. Of course, here recently, some of the new stuff that's in the news as far as woke companies go. Everybody knows about the Bud Light fiasco and everything that's taking place there. The boycott so far has been successful for the most part. It has really taken their stock worth down quite a bit. Their sales volume has drastically decreased. The newest one that I just read about is Target. And they are now offering a full line of transgender clothing for children. at your Target stores. They have around 3,000 items in that clothing line, and some of those even include swimsuits that boys can wear that look like girls' swimsuits, but they got special pouches for their private parts and everything. It's absolutely disgusting. And so if you guys visit Target on a regular basis, this is part of their Pride Month celebration for June. They've been woke for quite some time, but this definitely takes it to an all-new high and all-new level. And I hope that you guys will consider where you do business with some of these businesses as they try to shove this woke crap down our throats. So please pay attention to that and pray for discernment when you go shop at some of these places. There is also fake news out there, and I just want to give a shout out to a friend of mine's podcast. He has a podcast named Fake News, a fiery but mostly peaceful podcast, and you can check that out on any of your podcasting platforms. Luke Taylor is the one that takes care of that podcast, does an excellent job. He debunks a lot of the fake news that comes out where the media tries to take news and twist it and tries to make it fit their agendas. And he brings out the truth of those stories and puts out quite a few different episodes. So check that out. Fake News, a fiery but mostly peaceful podcast. And again, you can find that on your podcasting platforms. Well, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. We've got lots of news to cover this week, and I don't want to take any more time here with any more random talking about everything. We're just going to get right to the nuggets and see exactly what we have going on. Of course, here recently, the Grammy Awards took place, and a good friend asked if I'd watch the Grammy Awards. I told them I'd rather get a clot shot from Whoopi Goldberg than watch that show. The Grammy Awards is an annual celebration of debauchery that would make the people of Sodom and Gomorrah blush. And this year of 2023, their show did not disappoint. Most of the nation has been chattering about a performance by an LGBTQ artist that celebrated Satan. Sam Smith, who identifies as non-binary, and Kim Petras, who identifies as transgender, performed a Satan-themed set at the awards show. The Business Insider reported, in their hell-themed performance of their duet Unholy, Smith wore a devil horn top hat, and Petras performed in a cage while the singers were surrounded by red-robed worshipers. The performance drew fury from some conservatives who in recent years have rallied around so-called culture wars themes, including transgender rights and restricting teaching of LGBTQ issues and race in classrooms. In the press room following the performance, Petras elaborated on the performance. Quote, "I think a lot of people, honestly, have kind of labeled what I stand for and what Sam stands for as religiously not cool. I personally grew up wondering about religion and wanting to be a part of it, but then slowly realizing it doesn't want me to be a part of it. So it's a take on not being able to choose religion and not being able to live the way that people might want you to live because, as a trans person, I'm kind of already not wanted in religion," unquote. Ted Cruz tweeted, "This is evil." Of course, he's the Republican from Texas, and he's not wrong. It was further evidence of how Hollywood has surrendered to evil. They openly worship the Prince of Darkness. There were a number of Christian and gospel artists in the audience on that Sunday night. I wonder if any of them walked out in disgust, or if they actually applauded in solidarity. Of course, Petras is a transgender male to female that started his transition when he was 16 years old, kind of holds the record as the youngest transgendered person to cross over. He originally was not allowed to do so because of his age, but he appealed this in courts in different places and won. And he was able to go ahead and start his transition of trying to be a girl in a boy's body. And of course, here recently, Sports Illustrated in their bikini episodes that they put out each year. They put out, I guess, one magazine a year that's the swimsuit issue. And guess who is part of the swimsuit issue? It's a guy in a girl's bathing suit, Petras. So again, that's another company that has gone woke. I seem to recall a Bible verse about a people who turned their back on the teachings of the Almighty. God abandoned them to do whatever shameful things their hearts desired. As a result, they did vile and degrading things with each other's bodies. We're living in those days, America, but instead of repenting, the culture is handing out awards. Next on the agenda, the gay activist with a Netflix documentary, Peter Tatchell, responded to SMG reporter Alan Morrow's tweet about a clip of him. And here we're going to listen to that clip. Here's cut one.
He told me when he was about 50 that he had had sex with a young man when he was 9 years old. He said it was his choice. He said he wasn't pressured or manipulated. He said he had no regrets about that sexual experience. So my view is, that's what he's saying. It's his personal view as an adult, mature man looking back on his childhood. If he says that, who am I or you to dispute it? Now, I accept that most sex involving young people is abusive and wrong. His view is perhaps exceptional, but it's not a view that should be dismissed and denied. If an adult person looks back on an early sexual experience and says they consented to it, they were not pressured, they were not harmed, they have no regrets or complaint, I think we should do the honest thing and accept their viewpoint.
Okay.
Now, Netflix made a documentary about Peter in 2021 where he quotes, "I oppose adults having sex with kids." Tatchell tweeted that in response, leaking to his website and claiming he has made that argument for decades and has, quote-unquote, helped child abuse victims fight for justice. Morrow responded, "Why did you say that most sex involving young people and abusive and is wrong?" He added, "Are you saying there's ever a time when pedophilia is permissible?" Well, Peter responded, "My friend told me when he was about 15 that he had had sex with a young man when he was 9 years old. He said it was his choice. He said he wasn't pressured or manipulated. He said he had no regrets about that sexual experience. So my view is that's what he's saying. It's his personal view as an adult, mature man looking back on his childhood. If he says that, who am I or you to dispute it?" Tatchell went on to say that he accepts that, quote-unquote, most sex with young children is, quote-unquote, abusive and wrong. However, the activist said he believes that his friend's view should not be dismissed. Tatchell is largely celebrated in the media and pop culture for taking a stand for gay rights and advocating for Marxist ideas in Europe. This is even to the extent that Netflix created a documentary about him in 2021, celebrating his protest and activism. Peter campaigned for the documentary with the tweet, "Watch trailer for my hashtag Netflix movie, Hating Peter Tatchell. For 54 years, I've confronted bigots, 3,000 protests, 100 arrests, 300 violent assaults, 50 attacks on my flat, and thousands of death threats. But I'm still campaigning." So again, Netflix is also caving to the woke crowd. That's also something to keep of all these companies that are going woke. A Georgia school district was made to pay over $100,000 in legal fees after silencing a concerned mother and banning her from speaking at school board meetings. A group of moms called the Mama Bears filed a federal lawsuit claiming the Forsyth County School District violated their First Amendment rights. The group was represented by attorneys from the Institute of Free Speech. After a federal judge ruled in favor of the Mama Bears, FSC was ordered to pay the group's attorney fees of $107,500. Additionally, the school district was required to pay the plaintiffs $17.91 per a Fox News report. Last year, during a school board meeting, Mama Bears member Allison Hare read an excerpt from a book that she discovered was available in her son's middle school library. The book, entitled Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, is about a young boy whose father was tragically killed on 9/11. At the school board meeting last February, during the public comment portion, Hare read from the book, "I know that you give someone a blowjob by putting your..." She was immediately silenced by a school member and told she could not read from the book during the meeting, even though the book was promoted to middle schoolers by the district. A month later, Hare tried to read the same excerpt from the book at another school board meeting. As a result of her actions, the school district sent her a letter banning her from future school board meetings, saying she was in violation of the district's public participation policy. Fee shifting is an important feature of our civil rights laws, and successful plaintiffs who are able to show that government officials censored them are entitled to have their attorney's fee paid by the wrongdoers, just like for any other form of illegal discrimination. We hope that school board members and their lawyers take note. Institute for Free Speech Senior Counsel Del Colde told Fox in an interview. In November, the federal judge ruled FSC's public participation policy unconstitutional, banned them from enforcing it, and forced the school district to allow Hare to speak at school board meetings. Fox reports the legal fees are being covered by the district's insurance company. National radio host Todd Starnes slammed Black Lives Matter activists in Memphis for verbally attacking white citizens because of the color of their skin at a city council meeting. Things got ugly at a Memphis City Hall meeting when a group of BLM activists hurled racial slurs at citizens concerned about crime. The city council meeting drew a massive crowd as council members reviewed 6 police reform ordinances following the fatal beating of Tyree Nichols by 5 Memphis Police Department officers. Proponents of ordinances believe that there is a culture of racism within the MPD. Some were even calling for the entire department to be abolished. On the other side, pro-police citizens worry that passing the measures will add more red tape to policing, which could hinder recruiting and retention. And with the already massive police shortage in the city, it will lead to even more crime. Missy Rayner, the aunt of Rhodes College students shot and killed during a home invasion last year, pleaded with the council to hire more officers. Following her emotional remarks, one radical activist said they don't care about quote-unquote white tears. I'm not going to bow down to the fears of white people that don't have to worry about the same things I have to worry about when I'm being pulled over by the police, the activist yelled while pointing to white community members behind her. I'm not going to sit up here and listen to their white tears and their ignorance. Here's a clip of that conversation. Here's cut 2.
So I find it quite funny that today of all days, on the third reading of this ordinance, we have this whole group of white people that have opposition to these ordinances taking place. We've been here for every reading that has taken place this time. This is three readings though of this, and none of these white people were here to speak about their lack of feeling safe. We don't feel safe with the police. I had a conversation with CJ personally and told her the same thing that I'm standing here telling y'all today. I never feel safe when it comes down to police. My siblings don't feel safe when it comes to police. The black people sitting in this room don't feel safe when it comes to police. But adding unmarked police cars to that makes it even more dangerous. It's a problem. I don't know who's pulling up on me if it's an unmarked car. How do I identify you? Because you got some lights. I can buy some lights on Amazon and put them in my window and identify myself as a police officer. So how is that making us safe? This is like literally common sense. I'm not going to bow down to the fears of white people that don't have to worry about the same things that I have to worry about when I'm being pulled over by the police. I'm not going to sit up here and listen to their white tears and their ignorance to what it looks like to be a black man like Tyree walking around in the city of Memphis, a predominantly black city. So on that, I'm going to say, please pass these ordinances that we're asking you for. This is the third time we've come to y'all about these things, and y'all need to listen to us. We are the citizens that y'all need to listen to, not these white tears.
Social media users were quick to condemn the blatant racist attacks. Ridiculous. If that had been a white person saying that crap, y'all would have been trying to ruin their lives, one person wrote on KWAM's Stop Memphis Crime page. If racists had a face, wrote another. One far-left activist called the white citizens Blue Lives Matter bootlicker Karens. Starnes, KWAM station owner, blasted the activist, writing, quote, "Black citizens are literally verbally attacking white citizens because of the color of their skin at the Memphis City Council meeting," unquote. I think the only way to feel safe is to stay away from Memphis. And I agree with that. I have had a trip that I've taken here recently, and I was going to North Carolina. I made sure I skipped Memphis. On to the next item here. Violators of Michigan's new LGBTQ+ discrimination law could be fined up to $50,000 according to new legislation passed by the State House and Senate. Governor Gretchen Whitmire, a Democrat, is set to sign the law passed on partisan lines that makes discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity a punishable offense. Democrats denied religious protections put forth in amendments by Republicans. Anyone convicted of a civil rights violation in Michigan could incur charges of $10,000 for the first violation and up to $50,000 for 2 or more violations within a 7-year period. No one should be fired from their job or evicted from their home because of who they are, Whitmer tweeted in response to the legislation passing, "I'm proud that we're finally getting it done." The legislation originated with Michigan Senate President pro tempore Jeremy Moss, a Democrat in Michigan, who celebrated the passing of the legislation on his Twitter account. Moss, along with fellow Democrats in the state Senate, denied amendments from their Republican counterparts that attempted to afford greater religious protections due to the concerns that the bill would result in the punishment of people upholding their religious beliefs. Adding sexual orientation and gender identity to the act will not compel a church to marry an LGBTQ couple, stated Moss, but adherents of a religion are required to follow neutral, generally applicable laws. But recent history says otherwise. According to a Daily Wire report, last summer, Michigan's highest court ruled against two businesses who conducted their operations in accordance with their religious beliefs. The Michigan Supreme Court issued the ruling in Rauch World versus Michigan Department of Civil Rights based on a similar interpretation of civil rights protections passed by the state legislature. The court declared last July that the state's civil rights protection extended to sexual orientation and gender identity. The majority ruled against two businesses for refusing services based on their religious beliefs. Rauch World, who refused to host a same-sex wedding, and Uprooted Electrolysis, who refused to give their hair removal services to a man identifying as a woman. New York Attorney General Letitia James ignited a firestorm on social media back in March after she announced her plan to host a drag story hour for children. The event was scheduled for March 19th and was held in Manhattan's West Village, featuring a multitude of elected Democrats, both statewide and locally. It was also sponsored by Drag Story Hour NYC, a nonprofit that has received over $200,000 from New York City to promote and establish story hours featuring drag queens in public schools. "My office is proud to host a Drag Story Hour readathon," James wrote on Instagram. "We're inviting families to join us at the @LGBT Center NYC with @Drag Story Hour, drag storytellers, community leaders, and elected officials." Matt Antar, finance chairman of the New York Young Republican Club, shot back at the Attorney General's decision on Twitter several days after the news broke. Why? Why? What is the purpose of government-funded drag queens for children? To teach tolerance? That's BS. Drag is a profession, not a type of person, Antar stated. A profession where adult men do exaggerated female impersonations, often scantily clad with sexual themes. This is not the way, he added. Former Newsmax host Steve Cortez, a New York native, also slammed the move as an explicit targeting of children. According to an updated flyer shared by conservative influencer Ashley St. Clair, Democratic State Senator Brad Holliman Segal and Assembly members Deborah Glick and Tony Simone plan to attend the show. Well, the annual White House Easter egg roll has ruffled feathers among the anti-poultry crowd. People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals is calling on the First Lady, Dr. Mrs. Jill Biden, to stop using real chicken eggs in the Easter egg roll. American farmers donated more than 70,000 eggs for the annual Easter tradition, The Hill reported. Chickens are smart, sensitive animals who feel pain and empathy, have distinct personalities, and at just a few days old can count and perform basic addition and subtraction. Yet they are factory farmed in hen prisons, and the eggs they produce are stolen for humans to eat, wrote PETA President Ingrid Newkirk. Instead, PETA wants the White House to use either plastic eggs or wooden eggs. And if those options aren't available, they recommended painted rocks or egg-shaped balls. Perhaps someone at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue should tell PETA to, as they say, cluck off. PETA says the problem with using real eggs is that vegan children might feel excluded. Children who have natural empathy for animals would be saddened to learn that the eggs at this family event came from mothers who spent their entire lives in cages smaller than a letter-sized sheet of paper, unable to lift a single wing, and were taken from her as soon as they were laid. It's a most foul irony, the mother cluckers said in a press statement. As for PETA, they were more than happy to hop on down the bunny trail and dye whatever they want, whether it be rocks or a block of fermented soy. Meanwhile, the rest of us going to be on the White House lawn doing our best not to cockle-doodle care. In my last news brief, I reported about San Francisco planning to pay out $5 million in reparations to eligible black residents. Well, the San Francisco chapter of the National Association of the Advancement of Colored People, or the NAACP, has publicly come out against San Francisco's groundbreaking reparations proposal, with a reported maximum payout of $5 million for those eligible. The NAACP said it favors a long-term investment that helps the black community overall, compared to simply sending direct payments to black residents. This would include investments in the realms of education, healthcare, affordable housing, economic empowerment, and also a black center of town in the Fillmore Heritage Center, the Washington Examiner reported. We strongly believe that creating and funding programs that can improve the lives of those who have been impacted by racism and discrimination is the best path forward toward equality and justice, the San Francisco NAACP President Amos Brown said in a statement. The proposed $5 million figure has been deemed quote-unquote arbitrary by some of its detractors. Speaking to the Washington Post, Eric McDonald, chairman of the African American Reparations Advisory Committee, said, quote, there wasn't a math formula, unquote, behind the number. It was a journey for the committee towards what could represent a significant enough investment in families to put them on this path to economic well-being, growth, and vitality that should tell slavery and all the policies that flowed from it destroyed, said McDonnell. In addition to debates about the $5 million payout, San Francisco Board of Supervisors has weighed the merits of potentially eliminating personal debt and tax burdens for black residents, along with guaranteed annual incomes of at least $97,000 for the next 250 years. There could even be opportunities for black residents to purchase homes in the city for $1 per family, according to the Examiner. Former San Francisco mayoral candidate Richie Greenberg blasted the reparations plan as illegal under 5 states and federal laws. Greenberg also argued the proposal violates California Proposition 209, Article 34 of the state constitution, Title 6 and 7 of the Federal Civil Rights Act, and the 14th Amendment of the United States. There's also a website, rejecttheplan.com, devoted to promoting Greenberg's hopes of halting San Francisco's reparations plan. Former California gubernatorial candidate Larry Elder, who is black, also criticized the plan. On social media, Elder tweeted out, "Let me get this straight. A black college-educated San Franciscan with money in the Silicon Valley Bank gets full reimbursement through his deposit exceeds FDIC's $250,000 limit, receives $5 million in reparations, and gets student debt loan forgiveness. Is this a great country or what?" The Reparations Committee will meet again in June, and the city's Board of Supervisors will next discuss potential reparations on September 19th. Well, on up the road a little bit, parents in Eugene, Oregon are raising concerns about a shocking homework assignment from Churchill High School. Their children were instructed to write a short story depicting a sexual fantasy involving feather boas, romantic music, massage oil, and flavored syrup. The youngsters had to write a short story of a paragraph or two about a sexual fantasy that will have no penetration or any kind of oral sex, therefore no way of passing an STI. The assignment tells students to pick 3 items to use in their story and give examples of romantic music, candles, massage oil, or flavored syrup. It summarizes the assignment by saying, your story should show that you can show and receive loving physical affection without having sex. What in the name of Mrs. Butterworth was that school district thinking? It's not the first time the students have been exposed to inappropriate lessons. Earlier this year, they had to write the initials of classmates they would consider having sex with. Oregon Live reports the teacher, Kirk Miller, assigned kids a lesson titled, "With Whom Would You Do It?" "My daughter was very, very, very uncomfortable in this classroom," Dad Justin McCall told television station KEZI, especially when the teacher put up the generated spinning wheel and it had anal penetration and oral sex up there. Her and her best friend did not participate in that, but they still got graded. Parent Catherine Rogers told the newspaper the assignment was to, quote, list on the handout the initials of a male or female that you would do each activity with. You may use the same person for multiple activities, unquote. What are we promoting? Rogers asked. What is an adult doing with this information? The district reviews these curriculums before they get approved, right? She asked. Did they actually read this? If this was received, how did it slip through the cracks? I could see this easily becoming a national scandal. The school district says the perverted lesson was part of approved curriculum, but it has since been pulled from the classroom. And that's all well and good, but the issue is who put it there in the first place, and why is that person still employed with the district, and why hasn't the teacher been charged with crimes regarding the distribution of sexually explicit material to minors? Our nation's public schools have become infected with sex and gender perverts who are radically indoctrinating American school children. All that to say, if your kid's homework assignment involves a tub of Crisco, Barry White music, and a bottle of Mrs. Butterworth's, you might want to consider homeschooling. TV host and actress Drew Barrymore is being criticized as woke white woman for kneeling before a transgender activist on her show. Megyn Kelly slammed the Drew Barrymore show host on a radio show after Barrymore kneeled to biological male Dylan Mulvaney. And of course, that's Dylan Mulvaney, a Bud Light fan. What is most bizarre here, Dylan is the normal one, Kelly explained on the Megyn Kelly show. Dylan is not behaving to me in any particularly odd way. Drew Barrymore is. It was so cringy, the former Fox host continued. Her fake smile, this is an actress. Drew Barrymore is acting. And what was she acting the part of? Woke, weak white woman praying at the transgender altar. That's her part in this particular role. Kelly joked about the situation after the video shows Mulvaney joining Barrymore on the floor because according to him, the floor always feels safer. Here's the conversation Dylan and Drew had while she was on her knees in the floor before him on her show. Here's cut 3.
There is so much hatred directed at the trans community right now. It's everywhere. And I think the greatest weapon that I can contribute is trans joy and comedy and talking about hard, subjects and really intricate moments of a transition and try to let everybody in to see that, I'm not a monster. I'm not somebody that, is trying to do anything but be myself. I think having my chosen family and the people that I love to take care of me, but I also think there's something just about, making sure that you don't put something out there before you're ready and really just surrounding yourself with good people. It's interesting because I look at someone like you and I can't imagine anybody disliking you.
Oh, please. Do you want to know, ironically, who dislikes me the most sometimes?
Who?
Myself.
Oh, me too. Oh. But I guess, you've asked me now, you've asked me, what I would do to combat the hate, right?
Yeah.
But what do you do?
If you read reviews, just like on social media, you are pretty much guaranteed a 50-50. Some like it, some don't. So you've got to be willing to bear down and brace for it. And I think
picking your battles too.
Yes.
And sometimes I think the greatest response can just be in the next joyous video or in the next win that you have, because that just goes to show that you are continuing on, and whatever that those people are projecting onto you, it isn't actually penetrating.
I couldn't agree more, because another thing that you're making me realize is to not carry on in spite of others.
I'm sorry, I just realized that I'm sitting on the floor with Drew.
I'm so happy to be doing this. Thank you for joining me on the floor. The floor always feels safer.
It feels nice.
Trans joy? What the heck is that? Maybe I should do the next presidential debate on the floor, Kelly sarcastically replied. Perhaps I should have been sitting on the floor when I asked Trump or any of these other guys tough questions, Kelly said. How weak is she? Where are the strong women? What is it? False strength by showing every weakness coming out of your pores. And it all may be an affectation, which makes it even more insulting. Well, coming from Drew Barrymore to this next story, there's a victory in the Marvel Universe. It turns out there was only one thing more lethal to Superman than kryptonite. It was woke politics. Over the past year, movie directors and comic book writers turned the Man of Steel into a symbol of all that is woke and triggering in this country. They turned Superman into a gay, pro-open borders tree hugger. Quote, Marvel and DC have ruined their characters to please the woke mob, who don't even buy comics, unquote, one angry critic wrote. Gay Superman was canceled less than a year later due to poor book sales. They also changed his beloved motto from Truth, Justice, and American Way to Truth, Justice, and a Better Tomorrow. One movie adaptation actually referred to the American way as all that other stuff. But it turns out that most Americans did not embrace politically correct Superman. And now comes word that director James Gunn will resurrect the old model in the newest Superman film. Gabe Eltaeb, a former colorist for DC Comics who resigned over wokeness, says Superman's essence is in fact the American way. Bounding into Comics was quoted, "Great people paid for everything we have with American way. Show some respect. Superman was found by two Christian farmers from America's heartland," he told Bounding into Comics. He got his physical abilities from his biological parents, but he got his morality, the thing that actually makes him a hero, from the Kents. They named him Clark and taught him about truth, justice, kindness, and restraint, but also indeed the American way. How else would he learn not to kill, demolish the world, or rule as a tyrant king when no one could do anything about it? Eltaeb asked. That goodness is the American way, he wrote, the fable of the strongest man in the world restraining himself and choosing to do as much good as American. Because where else could Clark learn these ideas? Was it just innate? Of course not. It was the culture of his parents, and that culture is the American way. He's an old-school, all-American, faith-based superhero. Superman. Legacy tells the story of Superman's journey to reconcile his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing as Clark Kent of Smallville, Kansas. Ready press release from Warner Brothers. He is the embodiment of truth, justice, and the American way, guided by human kindness and a world that sees kindness as old-fashioned. Right-leaning film critic and host of the Hollywood in Toto podcast, Christian Toto commented on the move to Fox News Digital. So here's the Warner Brothers doing the right thing and restoring Superman's motto. I predict a better tomorrow for the comic book industry. Well, USA Today gave a biological male of, quote, Woman of the Year, unquote, award. The newspaper picked a quote-unquote woman for each of the 50 states for its quote-unquote Women of the Year, as well as several national honorees, including former First Lady Michelle Obama. Democrat State Representative Leigh Finke, a biological male who identifies as a transgender woman, was given the Woman of the Year for Minnesota. She never planned to be a politician. Now she's the first transgender legislator in the state's House of Representatives fighting to build a better future for trans youth, USA Today wrote of Finke. The glowing feature adds the following about Finke. Finke has been an activist for transgender and LGBTQ+ rights, as well as Black Lives Matter, almost her whole life. Well, after transitioning in 2017, Finke said politics began hitting, quote-unquote, a lot closer to home. Witnessing national and coordinated attacks against the rights of transgender people and others in her community motivated her to be representation Minnesota was lacking. It's a dramatic understatement to say that I am beyond honored to see my name among this list of honorees, Finke tweeted. Finke has only been in office for a few months. As an elected, I recognize that I just got here, Finke said. The faith that has been put in by my district, by the queer community, and by my colleagues at the Capitol has been life-giving. I've only begun to fathom how much my life has changed for the better over the past year. He told USA Today, trans liberation is upward flowing. All liberation movements flow outwards. Everyone will benefit from it, and it's worth committing yourself to. Many online called out Finke and trolled the radical left politician. Greg on Twitter posted, "Say hello to Leigh Finke, USA Today's Woman of the Year from Minnesota. To the actual women not chosen for this, you deserve better. And I'm sorry." "Congrats, sir," another user quoted. "Patriarchy won," one woman said. "So you denied a great woman from the state of Minnesota the recognition she deserves. Congrats, I guess," another person tweeted. USA Today launched the program in 2022 as a continuation of Women of the Century, which commemorated the 100th anniversary of women gaining the right to vote. And once again, they're basically saying that men do women better than women do. A Michigan university is hosting separate graduation celebrations for students based on race and sexual identity, a Fox News reported. Grand Valley State University plans to host 5 separate graduation celebrations in addition to its general commencement ceremony, which is open to all students. The segregated ceremonies promoted by the school's Multicultural Affairs Office are for students who are Black, Asian, Latinx, Native American, and LGBTQIA+. The Daily Wire's Matt Walsh took to Twitter to point out that there is no ceremony for straight white people. "This is ridiculous," Walsh tweeted. Grand Valley State University is holding 5 segregated graduation celebrations, singling out Asian, Black, LGBT, Hispanic, and Native American graduates. There will be no special celebrations for straight white people, of course. Fox also reported that GVSU students who identify as LGBTQIA+ are eligible to receive the school's Outstanding LGBTQIA+ Graduate Award, which honors an exceptional student graduating in the fall or winter semester of 2023 who self-identifies as a member of that group and community. GVSU is not the only woke school to host segregated graduation celebrations. In the last few years, notable universities like Harvard and Columbia have put on similar ceremonies for minority students. The Michigan school defended hosting segregated ceremonies. Grand Valley State University holds unified commencement ceremonies for all of its graduates. GVSU is not segregating graduation ceremonies by race, as some people and outlets have said, the university told Fox. Grand Valley also welcomes student organizations and faculty leaders to hold smaller-scale celebrations designed to honor graduates. These more intimate celebrations are a complement to the GVSU's commencement and are open to all students and their supporters. The university representative added that degrees are conferred at the main ceremony, which is open to all students. The vast majority of graduating students who participate in these celebrations also choose to participate in our larger commencement ceremony, where degrees are conferred, the representative said. On to Texas. A Texas University president canceled a drag show on the school's campus, citing his Christian faith in his reasoning. Does a drag show preserve a single thread of human dignity? I think not, West Texas A&M University President Walter Wendler wrote in an email to students, which he later posted on his blog. The university president went on to call drag shows offensive and demeaning to women. As a performance exaggerating aspects of womanhood, sexuality, femininity, and gender, drag shows stereotype women in cartoon-like extremes for the amusement of others and discriminate against womanhood. Any event which diminishes an individual or group through such representation is wrong. The drag show was intended to serve as a fundraiser for the Trevor Project, a nonprofit designed to help prevent suicide among individuals who identify as LGBTQ. Wendler called this a noble cause, but suggested the students, quote-unquote, skip the show and send the dough. In his justification for canceling the show, Wendler compared these kinds of performances to blackface. Drag shows are derisive, divisive, and demoralizing misogyny, no matter the stated intent, the university president wrote. Such conduct runs counter to the purpose of WT. A person or group should not attempt to elevate itself or a cause by mocking another person or group. As the university president, I would not support blackface performances on our campus, even if told the performance is a form of free speech or intended as humor. It is wrong. I do not support any show, performance, or artistic expression which denigrates others, in this case women, for any reason. Wendler added that people deserve to be treated with dignity because they are made in the image of God. I believe every human being is created in the image of God and therefore a person of dignity, Wendler said. Being created in God's image is the basis of natural law. James Madison and Thomas Jefferson, prisoners of the culture of their time as we are, declared the Creator's origin as the foundational fiber in the fabric of our nation as they breathed life into it. Well, despite the president canceling the event, the WTAMU students announced the drag show must go on. We, the students of WTAMU, hope to bring this issue to Dr. Wendler's attention and urge him to reinstate the drag show on campus. A student petition with over 10,000 signatures reads, "We are holding this drag show whether we have support or not. but his extreme lack of compassion for the LGBT plus and activist student population on campus shows with this latest email. Wendler had not yet responded to the students' announcement that they will defy his order as of the recording of this podcast. WTAMU students started a new petition for Wendler to step down as the university's president. So far, it has less than 900 signatures of the 1,000 goal. A biological who identifies as a woman came out on top of a New York City cycling race, upsetting critics that it was quote-unquote not fair at all for the true female opponents. Tiffany Thomas, the 46-year-old transgender winner, began cycling in 2018 and has dominated the sport ever since, including clinching a spot on top cycling team LA Sweat, where the next oldest teammate is only 32 years old. Last race with our 2022 LA Sweat team kit. I'm not going to lie, sometimes it made me feel like a superhero when I wore it, Thomas noted in an Instagram post. Thomas LA Sweat team profile biography states the biological male works as a lab director as a quote-unquote scientist by day, athlete by night. You will never see anyone with a bigger smile than when she sees a beautiful electron microscopy picture of a red cell, the biography notes. She has never met a barbell, a bike, or a dog that she doesn't like. She is so incredibly excited to race and represent the LA Sweat team this year. Other female cyclists, though, they're not thrilled over Thomas' win, to say the least, accusing the trans cyclist of quote-unquote cheating. Not fair at all. At the Randall's Island Crit number 3 over the weekend, transgender athlete Tiffany Thomas was seen at the top of the podium, while 2 women followed in second and third place. A crit race or criterium is a lapped closed-circuit race that usually takes place in cities, according to bicycling.com, one person tweeted. I feel so bad for women athletes in America that have trained their entire lives, another critic lamented, according to the Daily Mail. We are destroying women's rights in America. They might as well just make every sport in this country co-ed. This is all so unfair. Everyone should live the way they want, but there are sacrifices. Former champion cyclist Hannah Ahrensman even quit the cycling sport after failing to place against a trans cyclist. At my last race at the recent UCI Cyclocross National Championship in the elite women's category, I came in 4th, flanked on either side by male riders awarded 3rd and 5th, she commented in her retirement announcement. My sister and family sobbed as they watched a man finish in front of me, having witnessed several physical interactions with him throughout the race. President Biden gloated about having a refrigerator filled with chocolate chip ice cream during a bizarre address that was supposed to be about the school shooting that left 6 people dead at an evangelical Christian school in Nashville. I came down because I heard there was chocolate chip ice cream, Biden said. By the way, I have a whole refrigerator full upstairs. You think I'm kidding. I'm not. He quickly became distracted by a woman and her 4 children. Who are those good-looking kids back there, he asked. Well, stand up, guys. Fox News anchors interrupted and appeared to be stunned at the president's lighthearted tone. We'll jump back here in a moment, considering this moment. This whole shooting that just happened left 3 children dead, left 3 adults dead, the shooter's dead, and we were told he would address this off the top, the anchor said. For those of you that are wondering, here is the Fox News briefing news alert after the shooting with Joe Biden. Here is cut 4.
Of the White House.
My name is Joe Biden. I'm Dr. Joe Biden's husband. And I ate Jenny's ice cream, chocolate chip. I came down because I heard there was chocolate chip ice cream. By the way, I have a whole refrigerator full upstairs. You think I'm kidding? I'm not. God. Ben, how are you, pal? One of the best guys in the United States Congress, Ben Cardin. Folks, welcome to the White House. It's a delight to have you all here. And who are those good-looking kids back there? Are your kids, all 4 of them? Well, stand up, guys.
John, we'll jump back in here. Considering the moment,
Like you.
We were told that the
shooting that just happened left 3 children dead. 3 adults dead, shooters dead, and we were told he would be addressing this off the top.
She used to be 3 years.
Yeah, it's rather surprising. I thought that a somber President Biden would have come to the podium here and addressed this school shooting.
And if you're wondering, Biden did eventually get around to talking about the dead school children.
I like ice and all different flavors. Ice cream, it tastes so good. I can't get enough.
Ex-Fox News host Tucker Carlson took on the transgender movement's hostility to Christians back in March, warning of a rise of trans terrorism. The trans movement, it turns out, is the mirror image of Christianity, and therefore its natural enemy, Carlson said. People who believe they're God can't stand to be reminded that they're not. The transgender movement is quote-unquote targeting Christians, Carlson warned. This is a little lengthy, but I felt it very necessary to replay this in case you hadn't heard his take on this before. I feel like he did an excellent job calling this out for what it is. This was originally aired on March 28th of this year. Here is cut 5.
It was just last week that we noticed that parts of the transgender movement seem to be getting militant and possibly dangerous. We did a whole segment about it on Thursday night. That segment was sparred by an NPR segment we had heard and never expected to hear. NPR has always, as a matter of editorial policy, completely opposed the civilian ownership of firearms, with the possible exception of maybe IRS agents. Yet here suddenly was that very same station, National Public Radio, positively urging trans people to buy guns, as many guns as possible, and if necessary, to use them. The world is dangerous, explained one trans gun owner. You have to be dangerous back. And that seems strange to us. Is the United States really a dangerous place for trans people? Well, West Baltimore is dangerous. You could easily get murdered there. But if you're trans in this country, obviously there are many downsides, but there do appear to be some benefits. It's a lot easier to get into Harvard, for example. It's definitely easier to get a job at Citibank or in the Biden White House. If you're transgender and can so much as fly a kite, the Pentagon will happily make you an F-35 pilot, just so Hollywood can make a movie about it. Identifying as trans, whatever, again, its downsides, does convey status in this country, which is why so many young people now do. Not a lot of 19-year-olds are pretending to be car mechanics or linemen for a regional power company in eastern Ohio, but plenty of college freshmen do pretend to be members of the opposite sex. And why wouldn't they? The people in charge despise working-class whites, but they venerate the trans community. People are just responding to incentives. It's rational in a way. But that does not explain the anger that we heard in that NPR segment. Why are some trans people so angry, and why do they seem to be mad specifically at traditional Christians? We can't think of any trans person who's ever been murdered by a pastor. As far as we know, that has never happened. So it's not an actual threat of violence from Christians that's inspiring some trans people to buy AR-15s. No, it's got to be more fundamental than that, and it is. The trans movement is the mirror image of Christianity, and therefore its natural enemy. In Christianity, the price of admission is admitting that you're not God. Christians openly concede that they have no real power over anything, and for that matter, very little personal virtue. They will tell you to your face that they are sinful and helpless and basically absurd. They're not embarrassed about any of this. They brag about it. That saved a wretch like me, goes the most famous Christian hymn ever written in English. The trans movement takes the opposite view. Trans ideology claims dominion over nature itself. We can change the identity we were born with, they will tell you with wild-eyed certainty. Christians can never agree with this statement because these are powers they believe God alone possesses. That unwillingness to agree, that failure to acknowledge a trans person's dominion over nature, incites and enrages some in the trans community. People who believe they're God can't stand to be reminded that they're not. So Christianity and transgender orthodoxy are wholly incompatible theologies. They can never be reconciled. They are on a collision course with each other. One side is likely to draw blood before the other side. That's what we concluded last week. Yesterday morning, tragically, our fears were confirmed. A self-identified trans person called Audrey Hale committed mass murder at a Christian school in Nashville. Hale burst into a place called the Convent School and executed 3 9-year-olds as well as 3 adults. Police have released body cam footage from the end of the massacre. We're showing you just a small part of it. You can see the rest online if you want. We're not going to show it because it's too awful and sad. But what was almost as sickening to see in a far more subtle and insidious way was the media coverage of yesterday's tragedy. Here's Terry Moran of ABC News, for example, suggesting that Christians were murdered in Tennessee because they infringed on the rights of transgendered people. Watch.
Audrey Hill identified herself as a transgender person. The state of Tennessee earlier this month passed and the governor signed a bill that banned transgender medical care for minors, as well as a law that prohibited adult entertainment, including male and female impersonators, after a series of drag show controversies in that state.
The state of Tennessee bans the sexual mutilation of children. Children get shot to death in a school. It's cause and effect. That's what ABC News is telling you. That's not far from justifying mass murder, but others took the next step. A group called the Trans Resistance Network said that the shooter's death was a complex tragedy that resulted from, quote, anti-trans bias. The Hershey Chocolate Company's new trans spokesman, meanwhile, someone called Faye Johnstone, posted messages after the shooting complaining about, quote, trans misogyny. In Canada, a taxpayer-funded trans rights organization put out a statement that ignored the murder of the children in Nashville entirely and instead claimed that there has been a, quote, exponential rise in anti-trans violence. That is a lie. It's a provable lie. And in fact, the opposite is true. We seem to be watching the rise of trans terrorism. The man who tried to murder Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh after the repeal of Roe v. Wade, identified as a, quote, trans gamer girl. The man who shot up a nightclub in Colorado in this past November and murdered 5 people, identified as non-binary. And now this. And there could be more. Antifa has announced this coming Saturday is the, quote, Trans Day of Vengeance. Vengeance for what? That's not explained. But the suggestion is there will be violence in Washington this weekend. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted about this today, because if there's a day of vengeance coming, the rest of us should probably know about it. And for doing so, immediately had her official congressional Twitter account suspended. You're not supposed to talk about any of this, apparently. And the authorities in Nashville certainly are not planning to talk about it. They're doing their best not to. Here's the police chief of Nashville explaining that, well, he's happy to talk about the shooter's guns. He's not going to tell you anything about the shooter's motives. Watch.
So in the manifesto, there's several different writings about other locations. There were locations, there was talks about the school. There was a map of the school, a drawing of how potentially she would enter and the assaults that would take place. There's quite a bit of writing to it. I have not read the entire manifesto. Our team and the FBI has been working on this.
Well, that's interesting. Within what seemed like minutes, we saw pictures of the rifles and the pistol. We now have horrifying body cam footage from within the school. So unsettling, we're not going to show it to you. But somehow we can't see the manifesto in which the killer explains why she killed. Why is that? It's not accidental. Well, you know exactly why it is. Because it would make the obvious undeniable. The trans movement is targeting Christians, including with violence. Most Christian leaders in this country don't want to admit that. Admitting it might force them to take deeply unfashionable positions. But it is true, and anyone who's paying attention knows that it's true. And so, like most true things at this point, it is officially suppressed. Here, for example, is Joe Biden yelping again about how it's all your fault when these tragedies happen because you've got guns at home. This is from yesterday.
We have to do more to stop gun violence. It's ripping our communities apart, ripping the soul of this nation, ripping at the very soul of the nation. And we have to do more to protect our schools so they aren't turned into prisons. You know, the shooter in this situation reportedly had 2 assault weapons and a pistol, 2 AK-47. So I call on Congress again to pass my assault weapons ban.
So we're going to prevent you from learning why the shooter did it, and we don't have to guess because she wrote a whole manifesto about why she did it. And we know that she did that because she told a friend of hers on Instagram that she did it. But we can't see it. We can only talk about the guns. We can't know what kind of drugs she was taking, What kind of hormones or SSRIs or benzodiazepines? We can only guess. We can only talk about the guns. Pass my assault weapons ban. That'll fix the problem. But Joe Biden is lying about that. He knows that he's lying, and you know that he's lying. Yesterday's massacre did not happen because of lax gun laws. Yesterday's massacre happened because of a deranged and demonic ideology that is infecting this country with the encouragement of people like Joe Biden. Let's start by being honest about that.
In a news item from Wayne State University, a woke professor was suspended with pay after posting a Facebook rant saying it is quote-unquote admirable to kill transphobic speakers. Stephen Shaviro, a Wayne State University professor of film studies and English, told students that just protesting quote-unquote right-wing speakers is ineffective. Although I do not advocate violating federal and state criminal codes, I think it is far more admirable to kill a racist, homophobic, or transphobic speaker than it is to shout them down, Shaviro wrote in a now-deleted Facebook post. He added that protesting a quote-unquote bigoted speaker only gives the speaker quote-unquote publicity and validation. When right-wing groups invite such speakers to campus, Shaviro continued, it is precisely because they want to provoke an incident that discredits the left and gives more publicity and validation to those reprehensible views that they could otherwise attain. Shaviro continued to say that shutting down a racist or transphobic speaker actually strengthens the very bigots against whom they are protesting. Following the professor's suspension, the Michigan school's president told students the professor's remarks were, quote-unquote, at best morally reprehensible and at worst criminal. We have on many occasions defended the right of free speech guaranteed by the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, but we feel this post far exceeds the bounds of reasonable or protected speech, Wayne State University President Dr. Roy Wilson added in the email he sent to students. School officials have since referred the incident to law enforcement, the New York Post reports. Well, country music delivered a stunning rebuke of its fan base by embracing a bunch of drag queens. Country singer Kelsey Ballerini opened the CMT Music Awards with a tribute to victims of the Nashville school shooting and then danced alongside drag queens. The victims attended the Covenant School, a Christian school. They were gunned by a transgender shooter, a woman who thought she was a man. CMT left that detail, though, out of its program. The queen stayed behind her as she played her pink guitar, but later in the performance, the fierce foursome helped take off Ballerini's green jacket for a fashion reveal, and the five of them then sashayed down a catwalk out into the audience as confetti rained down, CMT reported. The appearance of drag queens was an overtly political statement, as many states consider banning children from attending sexually provocative drag shows. Country superstar Shania Twain was given the Equal Play Award, recognizing her for being a quote-unquote visible and vocal advocate for diverse voices in country music. She performed her song, Man, I Feel Like a Woman. Here is a portion of the performance of Kelsey singing, If You Go Down, I'm Going Down Too, opening up on the CMT Awards. Here's cut 6. Okay, that's all I can take of that. What you weren't seeing in this audio version of the performance is all the drag queens on stage dancing and frolicking around as they ride off into the sunset of confetti. Some cowboys' boots are rolling over in their grave right about now. A Wall Street Journal poll shows that patriotism and religious affiliation among Americans has plummeted in the last 25 years. The survey asked 1,019 Americans if they value patriotism, faith, family values, and other staples of American life. The results showed that only 39% of respondents said religious faith is very important to them, while only 38% said the same of patriotism. These numbers have severely decreased since the first time the WSJ conducted the poll in 1998. The outlet reports that the 98 survey revealed that 62% of respondents valued religious faith, and 70% of them said patriotism is very important. Further, the survey showed that many respondents believe American society needs to do more to promote gender equality. Additionally, a large segment of respondents said the U.S. needs to do more to accept those who identify as homosexual. However, a plurality of those surveyed reported that America has gone too far in accepting transgender ideology and making accommodation for trans people. The poll also showed that nearly half of all respondents had a somewhat unfavorable or very unfavorable view of using preferred pronouns for transgender individuals. This poll is not alone in showing a recent decline in patriotism and American values. Fox News reports that pride in America has dropped 30% since 2011. Well, the publisher of Gone with the Wind has added a trigger warning to its latest edition of Margaret Mitchell's beloved novel. Pan Macmillan says the Civil War novel romanticizes the Old South and is basically racist and stereotypical. The text of this book remains true to the original in every way and is reflective of the language and period in which it was originally written. We want to alert readers that there may be hurtful or indeed harmful phrases and terminology that were prevalent at the time this novel was written and which are true to the context of the historical setting of this novel. Pam Macmillan believes changing the text to reflect today's world would undermine the authenticity of the original, so has chosen to leave the text in its entirety. Well, if the book is that offensive, why publish it at all? Would it not also be triggering for a publisher to make money on the sales of a novel they consider to be racist? The film adaptation has come under fire in recent years. HBO Max pulled Gone with the Wind from its streaming service after the death of George Floyd. A spokesperson for HBO added that Gone with the Wind is a product of its time and depicts some of the ethnic and racial prejudices that have unfortunately been commonplace in American society. These racist depictions were wrong then and are wrong today, and we felt that to keep this title up without an explanation and a denouncement of these depictions would be irresponsible. A number of theaters refused to broadcast the movie, even though it set a record for Academy Award nominations and wins, 13 in all, and 8 including Best Picture. Hattie McDaniel became the first African American to win an Oscar thanks to her portrayal of the character Mammy, a moment in cinematic history that should also be celebrated and not erased. But this is modern-day woke America, where common sense is gone with the wind. Vito Perrone got fired for being nice. Mr. Perrone had been hired to be the next superintendent in East Hampton, Massachusetts. He really was made for the job, a former high school principal in the district there and a football coach. But Mr. Perrone was given the heave-ho for a letter he wrote to the chairperson of the school board and the executive assistant to the school committee, both women. He did the unforbiddable and addressed them as ladies in his greeting. That was the unforgivable crime. Shortly thereafter, the job offer had been withdrawn. Honestly, I am truly, truly disappointed that I won't be in East Hampton in that building, he said. I'm just sad. The Hampshire Daily Gazette reports that both women considered the term ladies to be derogatory, and the fact that he did not know that as an educator that was a problem. Mr. Perrone was also reprimanded for using ladies as a form of microaggression. I was shocked, he told the newspaper. I grew up in a time when ladies and gentlemen was a sign of respect. I didn't intend to insult anyone. Local residents were just as outraged. I can't believe how ridiculous this is. Rescinding an offer for calling them ladies? Microaggression? This is totally nuts. Where have we gone as a society? Things just keep getting more ridiculous, one local resident wrote online. What a petty reason to rescind the offer to Dr. Perrone. This is sad and pathetic. As a woman, I can't imagine being offended by someone referring to me as a lady. That has always been a respectful title. I'm embarrassed for East Hampton, another wrote on Facebook. Maybe it's all for the best. That school board is definitely infected with woke snowflakes. The only good thing to come out of this is that now we can conclusively declare those East Hampton school board broads are definitely not ladies. And finally, as we wrap up this week for this episode of Woke News Brief, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican from Georgia, stunned 60 Minutes host Leslie Stahl by asserting that Democrats are the party of quote-unquote pedophiles. After Stahl told the audience Greene is sometimes known for her quote-unquote over-the-top remarks, the host quoted Greene saying, "The Democrats are a party of pedophiles." Greene immediately doubled down on her previous claim about the Democrat Party. "I would definitely say so. They support grooming children," Greene replied. Stahl, seemingly frustrated that Greene would make such a claim, quickly rebuked the Congresswoman. "They are not pedophiles," Stahl answered. "Why would you say that?" Greene continued to condemn Democrats and even President Biden, doubling down and describing them as pedophiles again. Even Joe Biden, the president himself, supports children being sexualized and having transgender surgeries. "Sexualizing children is what pedophiles do to children," Greene remarked. This response left the usually quick-on-her-feet host in a state of shock. After a moment of silence, the only thing Stahl could say in response was, "Wow," followed by an eye roll. Here is Cut 7.
And things she says that are over the top, like, "The Democrats are a party of pedophiles."
I would definitely say so. They support grooming children.
They are not pedophiles. Why would you say that?
Democrats support, even Joe Biden, the president himself, supports children being sexualized and having transgender surgeries. Sexualizing children is what pedophiles do to children.
Wow. Okay.
Greene's appearance on 60 Minutes sparked some controversy on the left. Many progressive commentators and outlets don't seem to think CBS should have given a voice to someone with Greene's conservative views. MSNBC's Mehdi Hasan slammed Stahl for not sticking up for Biden and Democrats more after Greene called them pedophiles. Greene uses her prestigious national media 60 Minutes platform to double down on her crazy and dangerous assertion that Democrats are pedophiles, and in response, Stahl could only say, "Wow, and can't you say that without name-calling?" Hasan wrote on Twitter. Further, CNN published an opinion piece with a title that asked the question, "Why is 60 Minutes amplifying the views of Marjorie Taylor Greene?" Despite commonly being the subject of controversy for a congresswoman in only her second term, Greene has gained a great deal of notoriety and power in the House of Representatives. In addition to being an advisor to House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, Greene also serves on the Homeland Security Committee. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Woke News Brief. This is an extension of Connecting the Gap podcast. I'm Daniel Moore, your host. Thank you for sticking it out with me again this week. We'll have some more woke news coming up in the future. I have tons preloaded in my system already. Where this all came from, I almost can't pump this out fast enough. I've probably got 2 or 3 more episodes worth as I'm sitting here in this chair. But our world is in a very dangerous position, and especially our country. We have totally walked away from our faith in a lot of ways. We've walked away from the foundation of what this country was built upon. And I just pray that as I share these news briefs with you, that you will take to heart everything that is being said. I pray that you will definitely put the United States and all of our leadership on your prayer list. God is going to have to intervene if this country isn't going to go down the toilet. And so I hope that you guys will join me in standing up and fighting against the woke agenda and all of the things that Satan is trying to push out there through all of his cronies each and every day here in the United States as it comes out on the news. Again, if you would like to sign up for a Woke Alert, which will tell you which companies are going woke as they decide to sponsor transgenderism or gay or the homosexual agenda, you can do that by entering your phone number, and conservative-minded shoppers will receive text updates on companies deemed to have strayed too far left in their marketing and other strategies. Many corporations are putting progressive activists and their dangerous agendas ahead of customers. They'll only succeed with doing that if all of us as conservatives from the right side look the other way. You can visit consumersresearch.org/woke alert, and you can sign up for those text messages at that website. Well, I'm out of here for this week. We'll be back with a new episode of Connecting the Gap next week. Thank you guys so much for sitting this out with me. Again, keep our country in your prayers, keep our leadership in our prayers, and I pray that you would just ask for a boldness from God as we all stand up together to fight this agenda that Satan is trying to shove down our throat And I pray that you would all just stand with me as I try to make everyone aware of what's going on in our country and in our United States as a whole. I'm out of here. I'll be back with you again next week. You've been listening to Connecting the Gap podcast. I'm Daniel Moore, the host for this podcast, and I personally thank you for listening each week. In this world, there are many disconnects that cause chaos in our lives. This podcast is birthed from the desire to share hope and restoration of the power of the gospel by being transparent and open in our biblical walk with God. Each week, we take a few moments as we navigate God's Word and peer into other people's testimonies and encourage each other to connect the gap. We upload a new audio podcast every Thursday and a video version of it on YouTube and Rumble. We are also on the Christian podcasting app Edify. You can subscribe to our podcast on many of the available podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcast, Deezer, Spotify, Google Podcast, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and many more. We are also available on your Alexa-enabled devices. If you would like to give us feedback or would like to contact our ministry for any reason, including prayer, visit our contact page at www.connectingthegap.net and send us a message. We hope you are blessed by this ministry. This is a production of Connecting the Gap Ministries.